Welcome everyone. I know that some people are caught in rain and in traffic, so I'm going to talk for a few minutes and hopefully more folks will be able to arrive. But I do want to start on time out of respect for everybody that's here, and also because we have committed to the custodian that he gets to go home at 8 o'clock, that we'll be done by then. So we're going to move through a lot of programs tonight. So a couple of housekeeping items. First off, if you have a cell phone, would you do me a favor out of courteousness to your neighbors? Would you silence that for me at this point so that those cell phones don't go off in the middle of the presentations? That would be very helpful. The purpose of tonight is to make sure that we're sharing with you all the different things that are happening in the Horizon West area. Staff has worked very hard to compile future development information, future traffic improvements information, fire stations that are coming in this area, parks, all the different dynamics that are happening in this area. They've spent an enormous amount of time pulling a lot of information together. That's not to say that you're not going to come up with a question that we haven't actually thought about yet, because that happens every single time. We'll do our level best to answer every question tonight at the end of the presentations, but if we can't answer it in this space, we will take down your contact information and follow back up with you. There's always that one question that we just didn't think anybody was going to ask, and we just don't have the information with us. So if you all would understand that we've done a ton of information, but it's by no means exhaustive, and we might have some things that we can't answer for you tonight, we will circle back if that's the case. Presentations are going to go pretty quickly. We're going to go through a lot of information. In order to make sure that we get all the information out that we can, I'm going to ask you to hold questions to the end. We are taping this for Orange TV, so you will be able to look at this on our website afterward. So if you know somebody that wasn't able to be here tonight that wants to know what we talked about, we will have that up on our website in short order. That being said, if you have questions, you'll see there's a couple of microphones down here. I have to insist that you come down and talk into the microphone to ask your question, because otherwise it's not going to get picked up for Orange TV and that information will be lost. So at the end, when we do have questions, if you'll cue at one of these microphones, that will help us capture that information a great deal. Oh, and I forgot maybe the most important thing. If you don't know me, I'm Betsy Vanderley. I'm the district commissioner for this area. I know I've met a lot of the folks in this room already, but if we haven't met, it's nice to meet you. By show of hands, just out of my curiosity and so we know who we're talking to, who has moved here in the last year? How many people have been here 5 years or less? That's almost the entire room. Some quick statistics. You all are the growth. We have, at this point in time, roughly 1,000 new residents a week moving to the Central Florida area, and Horizon West is one of the fastest growing areas in the United States. And if you looked around when I had people raise their hands, you're not going to be surprised by that at all. I'm fond of saying, we moved here for my dad to work on Disney years ago on the construction for Disney. So we moved here in 1970. So I'm one of the transplants here too. This was a very different community in 1970 than it is now. We've seen explosive growth for many years, but most notably in the last 5 years. You're going to see some slides that show the growth in this area over the past 5 years. I'm fond of saying that while it takes about 6 months to build a house, it takes about 6 years to build a road. And by show of hands, who called ahead and told us they were coming 5 years in advance so we could be prepared? Me either. So I know you guys are experiencing some traffic difficulties. We are moving very quickly, and you're going to see a very long list of improvements that are headed your way. But I'm also going to ask that you all are patient with us as we move through this as quickly as we can to make sure we make the improvements that are necessary. There are a lot of growing pains, and I don't mean that to be dismissive. I mean that to acknowledge just how much change is happening in this area. So all of that having been said, I'm going to really quickly introduce Sheriff Mina, your sheriff, and ask him to say a few words to you all as well. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. It's an absolute pleasure to be with all of you tonight. Always look forward to hearing from our community members, both the good and the bad. You know, we just recently received some feedback from online surveys and printed surveys that we had put out, and some great feedback about the men and women in the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and also some feedback from all of you in Orange County and what you care about, what your needs are. So anytime I talk to a group, I like to talk to them about help, right? So Orange County Sheriff's Office is a very professional organization, over 2,500 men and women who are dedicated to the safety of all of you and reducing and preventing crime. But we can't do it on our own. We need your help. And what I mean by that, if you think about your house and your neighborhood, I want you to picture this in your head, okay? Picture the house across the street, picture the house on either side of you. I bet you could tell me what cars are parked in each driveway, when the landscaper comes, when your neighbors are on vacation, probably the kids, teenagers who come and visit your neighbor's kids, and what kind of cars they drive. I know you know that because I know all that about my neighborhood. Well, the deputies patrolling your neighborhoods can't possibly know all that information. So that's why we need you to pick up the phone and call us if you see something that looks out of place. You see something, say something. Many of the burglars that we catch in your neighborhoods are because someone picked up the phone, someone saw something in a driveway, saw a van, saw a truck that didn't look familiar, and called us and told us, something just doesn't look right, you come out. And that's how we catch a lot of our burglars. So, just real quickly, a funny story, about myself and my family. I used to work in Orlando as the chief of police, right? And my wife called me. She's like, "Hey, John, there's this car driving around our neighborhood, and I don't like the way it looks. I think it's suspicious." I was like, "Well, call the police. I'm all the way in Orlando." And so even at that time, the chief of police, well, I don't want to bother that police department. I'm like, that's why we're here. It is absolutely no bother, and that's why we all became involved in law enforcement, because we want to come arrest the bad guy. We want to make it safer for your neighborhood. So in a little while, towards the end of the presentations, Captain Tony Marlowe, he's the sector captain for your district here, is going to talk about, your sector here is going to talk about crime in our area, what we're doing. Obviously, as Orange County, specifically this area, continues to grow, we are adding more deputies. I'm confident, Commissioner, that we will be approved in our budget for even more deputies than we have now to make it safer. And I know traffic is a huge concern, especially speeders that are out there. And I will tell you, I pulled up the stats before I came here, that since January 1, to now, in this area, all the roads that we have talked about in previous meetings in this area, we've written over 2,500 traffic citations for speeding, all different kind of violations in your area. And then two quick things about traffic, the new legislation. Can't text and drive anymore. Put those phones down. Starting July 1st, we are going to be hitting this area hard and other areas as well, especially in your school zones. And that's an enhanced penalty. If you're texting or distracted driving in a school zone, you're going to be getting a ticket. And we're going to really hit in the areas hard. Want to get that message out, especially you have maybe young teenage drivers as well. And all of us have been there. All of us have done that. We've all texted and driven. Got to stop. Got to put the phone down, and we're going to be serious about that. So the other thing that we're dealing with or have dealt with, and we got some help with the legislation, is street racing. All throughout the county, these people are street racing through our neighborhoods, on our streets, and we got some little help from the legislation. So now that used to be the officer or the deputy would have to actually see the activity, see the speeding, see the reckless driving to make an arrest. Now we have what's called the misdemeanor exception, so that you can witness it as a citizen, you can videotape that, you can notify us, get the tag number, get a description, and if we have enough evidence, we can arrest that person even though we didn't see it, based on your testimony. So a couple great things going on in Orange County because of our legislation, hopefully make your streets a little bit safer. And again, towards the end, Captain Tony Marlowe is going to talk about crime on area. Crime in Orange County is down. Crime in this area is down overall. And he's going to talk about a couple of different things that we have going on as far as staffing and getting more deputies out in this area. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, and I'm going to stay for the entire meeting and looking forward to your questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate it. And if I could, real quickly, if you are Orange County staff and you are in the audience, would you real quick stand, and so people can know who Orange County staff is that's here, and then you see a lot of staff folks up here as well. I just want to give you guys a real heads up that this is some of the hardest working people that I've ever worked with. They are here after having put in a full day, and they've done a ton of work to make sure that they're getting a lot of information out to y'all. So if y'all would just give them a real quick round of applause by way of thanks. And two in particular that I want to, if you've ever reached out to my office, if you've ever emailed my office or called my office, I have two really hardworking women that respond to all of the different calls and constituent concerns in our area. And while they may not be able to get an answer to you within 24 hours, they answer you within 24 hours to let you know that they're working on it. And they are some of the hardest working folks I know. They work in windowless office and take a lot of different complaints that come in. By the way, if you ever have a compliment, send that in too. We love that. So if you could just thank Diana and Amy, my two aides that work in my office right here. They hate it when I do that, but they are some of the hardest working people I know, so I really appreciate you all acknowledging that. And with all of that and all the housekeeping rules put down, I think that we've got the folks here that we're stuck in traffic, so we'll go ahead and get started. And the first person I'm going to have speak with you is Mr. Eric Rausch. And Eric is in our planning division, and he's going to talk about where we are, where we've been in terms of development in this area and what's coming. So, Mr. Rausch.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good evening to everyone. Thank you very much to OCPS as well for hosting us this evening. This is a beautiful venue. Auditoriums didn't look like this when I graduated, so this is fantastic. So I just want to give you guys a quick update on the growth in the Horizon West area generally. I'll go through the history of Horizon West, the 2018 growth statistics, some development highlights, specific projects I'd like to call to your attention, and then I'll wrap up with a quick summary. So this is the county. It's about 1,000 square miles. Horizon West is obviously located in the southwest portion of the county, and it's roughly about 4% of the total county area. This is our urban service area, outlined in red, as you can see on the screen. The historic core of downtown Orlando is here. So this is an area that was technically outside of our urban service area, but it receives all of the urban services from Orange County. It all began in the 1980s. There were a series of freezes. This area was primarily citrus industry, orange groves. Those freezes decimated that citrus industry. A group of property owners approached the county to do a public-private partnership back in 1993. And ultimately, the county adopted some policies into our comprehensive plan in 1995 to allow for the growth and development of Horizon West. It was the first sector plan in the state of Florida, which is a large-scale master planning process defined by state statute. And then specific area plans were adopted from 1997 to 2008. The first village was Lakeside. As you can see, it's the easternmost village. The historic urban center in the county is to the east, so the growth came from the east to the west. That was in 1997. It was just over 5,000 acres, and it was approved for 8,900 residential dwelling units. Growth began making its way west in 1999 when Bridgewater was approved, just over 4,000 acres, 10,450 dwelling units. The town center was approved in 2004. This is the area where all the commercial uses are primarily located, the large-scale commercial uses. So while it was 3,600 acres, it only had 4,870 dwelling units. Next was Village F, 2006. This is the village with the lowest density. Sidell Road runs right through the middle of Village F and connects over to 429, which is on the western boundary. 2,500 acres, 3,891 dwelling units in Village F. Village H, also known as Hickory Nut, was approved in 2006 as well. 2,975 acres, just over 6,000 residential units. And finally, Village I is the southernmost village. Not much growth in Village I yet today, but I am going to talk a little bit more about that as I move through the presentation. We are starting to see a lot of applications in Village I. 2008, that was approved, and it's 5,600 units. So why Horizon West? It was a response to the growth trend at the time. This is East Orange County. This is what was happening back when Horizon West was being conceived. This is the Eastwood Golf Course. I don't know if any of you guys have been out there, but there's a complete and total lack of connectivity between any of these projects, which forces you, if you want to go visit your neighbor, you got to get on one of these main collector roads, and it was really a traffic nightmare. So here's an example. These are two neighbors. So they have a common fence. Say you want to go talk to your neighbor about potentially trimming this tree or doing some maintenance on the fence. Go back to the overall graphic, and this is the closest path to get to your neighbor's house. So that's going to be 8 miles. 8 miles you have to drive to see your neighbor. So in response to that, the county developed Horizon West with some policies for interconnectivity, maximum block sizes, things of that nature to prevent this type of situation. So this is a prototypical Horizon West village. This is Village F. You can see that you have the commercial uses concentrated in the village center. You've got a variety of different housing types and residential uses. So these are all the fundamental policies that you'll find. Interconnected street network, we require interconnectivity. We prohibit gated communities in Horizon West. We've got a mix of housing types. You'll find anything from larger estate lots all the way up to multifamily dwelling units, including some products that you don't see in other places in the county, like 32-foot wide rear-loaded lots, which are essentially townhomes detached. This was the first area in the county we used the concept of adequate public facilities. Each landowner in Horizon West has to contribute a certain amount of acreage towards parks, schools, roads, fire stations, things of that nature to provide public facilities for the entirety of the village. If you don't have that, if you're not the property owner that has the school site, perhaps on your land, you'll have to compensate those who do. So even if, you don't have those, you're still contributing to the overall good of the village. And of course, the retail and commercial uses are all concentrated into specific nodes. They're defined by policy, so you'll have 2 neighborhood centers, which are the small 2-acre commercial sites in each neighborhood, and then you'll have the larger village center, which typically in these situations is a Publix with some ancillary retail uses. So here are a couple built examples. This is Keene's Crossing in Bridgewater. You've got the elementary school. You've got this is a future commercial tract in the county's park immediately adjacent to it. You can see that there are multiple housing types in this example. You've got smaller lots, you've got larger lots. And then, of course, in Bridgewater, Independence, same thing. You have some multifamily in this example as well. So these policies have been implemented over the last 10, 15 years. The schools and the parks are all co-located, so each neighborhood gets a elementary school with a 5-acre adequate public facilities park, and then you get the neighborhood commercial, which is immediately adjacent to that as well. Mix of housing types, as I mentioned. So in 2018, of course, another busy year in Horizon West. This is our single-family detached permitting on a monthly basis. The big number up here, this is countywide, 3,400 single-family permits were issued in 2018. Of those permits, 1,549 were in Horizon West. So that's 46% of the county's single-family permitting occurred in essentially a 4% area of the county. Actually, it's lower than last year. We were over 50% last year. So we're starting to see some activity on the east side of the county as well. This is total residential. Let me go back. Townhomes, a product that was once overlooked. It's back. Obviously, we have an affordable housing problem here. Townhomes are helping with that. It's a product that's historically a little bit cheaper. So we've seen a big uptick in townhomes. Countywide, roughly 1,200. 32% of those were in Horizon West. And then, of course, total growth, 42% of all county residential permits were in this area. So this is our largest growth center for the county. And if you watch any of our board hearings on a Tuesday, you'll notice most of the applications considered are in District 1, most of which are in Horizon West. So this is just a quick, aerial view of what is Village F, Sidell Road, 429. Summer Lake Park Boulevard is here. This is Avalon Road in Porter. This is Orange County National. And this is Village H, also known as Hickory Nut. 2013, there was nothing there. And this was just 5 years ago, 6 years ago. 2014, you're starting to see some land cleared along Sidell and in Waterley. This is Latham Park. 2015, this is Toll Brothers Lakeshore projects cleared, more land cleared in Waterley. You're starting to see the majority of Village F being cleared, as well as Summer Lake. 2016, now you've got units in a good chunk of Village F. Waterley Phase 1's almost built out. 2017, you've got Waterley's southern phase. You're starting to see Spring Hill, which is also known as Story Grove, Lennar project. And then 2017, even more. I don't have a 2019 aerial, but I can tell you that it's more of the same. So you'll see the existing projects built out and new projects graded. So over a 5-year period, almost all of Village F was built out, and you've got Village H well on its way towards completion as well. So now I'll just run through some specific projects. Obviously, one of the most exciting ones is Hamlin. This is in the town center. This is New Independence Parkway, Hamlin Groves Trail running south. You've got the Walmart, 429, Publix, ton of entitlements. The developer has done a really good job with the landscaping. I had a chance to go out to the Hamlin project after a community meeting just the other night, and I was really impressed with not only the architecture, but the landscaping and the amount of care they've taken to brand their project. This is the ultimate kind of look and feel that they're going for on the shores of Lake Hancock, which would be kind of a destination retail area with a boardwalk and things of that nature. They're still working through some of the development plan approvals for this, but ultimately this is the vision. So going back to Hamlin, of course, to orient you, New Independence, Hamlin Groves Trail. We've got a project that's located on the east side, which is a Provision Proton Center. This is a big deal. This is an economic development project, state-of-the-art cancer treatment center, 38,000 square feet. It's already approved, and I believe it's under construction today. On the south side, this is a relatively old aerial. I apologize. Obviously, there's a large movie theater here and parking structure existing, and this multifamily project is built out. This is the Hamlin Master DP. The waterfront area that I showed you will generally be right here. The theater, they're going to have out parcels, some of which are already constructed. 300,000 square feet of retail. So this is really the vision for the town center, the Main Street concept as it extends through Hamlin Groves Trail and into the public side as well. So with interconnectivity, of course, to the multifamily and access to the water for outdoor dining and things of that nature. Another project that's interesting, the Hamlin Groves Trail extension as it goes past Walmart to the north. This is the Blake ALF. This is an assisted living facility, about 86,000 square feet. The entitlements for this were just approved on Tuesday by our board. It's 101 beds. This is going to be what appears to be a pretty high-end ALF for our older residents. Some other projects, you're starting to see the growth move from the public site down to the south. There's a number of projects that are currently in the development process. First was a church, Harvest Bible Church, 20,000 square feet, 360 seats. I apologize, that elevation doesn't seem to come out pretty well. Further south, you've got another retail project immediately across from the Cove. This is 40,000 square feet. It's going to have frontage on both sides of the street, so we required them to enhance both sides architecturally since it has frontages on two roads 40,000 square feet. General retail, consistent with what you otherwise see on the other corners in Hamlin. This is on the north side of Hamlin Groves Trail extension, New Independence Parkway. It's just a small Taco Bell Pizza Hut, so it's a smaller project on the north. And then on the hard corner, that's going to be a SunTrust. And it addresses the corner. The landscaping is lush, obviously, in this area, so you're not going to see as much of it as we would like, because we did require them to do some architectural enhancements on it. Overture at Hamlin. This is a proposed 55-plus multifamily community. This is located immediately adjacent to the church and the retail that was just mentioned. So what you're seeing is a lot of the commercial really following the residential that we've had built out here over the last 5 years. You're seeing, those commercial uses come in because now the rooftops are here to support it. The spot at Silver Lining, this is a project in the village of Bridgewater. I don't know if you guys are familiar where the multifamily is, adjacent to Lake Spear, with the vertical mixed-use element where you've got some ground floor retail. This is an extension of that. Lake Spear would be to the north here, and this is just going to be a tastefully done medical office facility. That has not yet been approved. That's going to go to the Development Review Committee a week from yesterday. The Monk Property PSP, this is something that was recently approved by our board. This is in Lakeside. It was kind of an infill project. You've got wetlands surrounding the perimeter. It's 81 single-family units. It was originally more units, but the developer scaled it back at the request of the community. Lake Reams Neighborhood PSP, this is also known as the Develop Co. project. This is Summer Lake Park Boulevard where it tees into Reams and Fekay. It's proposed 74 units. It does include some wetland impacts, specifically a pipe that runs north-south to a stormwater pond off Reams. Staff has some concerns with this project. There was a recommendation of denial on this preliminary subdivision plan. So I can't tell you how it's going to go, but this is going to go in front of the board on June 18th. And then Story Grove Phase 2, getting into Village H. Story Grove Phase 1 is well underway, under construction. This is the north side of Water Spring. You're going to have some additional dwelling units. That's going to be 137 units over in Village H. And then on the south side of Water Spring, there's a new elementary school that's currently under construction, which I'm sure OCPS is going to discuss. You've got a proposal for another 65 units. This will have to go to our board. This has not yet been approved. And then the big project as we move south is Village I. There are 2 approved planned developments within Village I currently. Those are the Spring Grove Northeast PD, which is here. And that's approved for 327 attached and detached. Phase 1 and 2 are already under construction, which are on the north end. The Phase 3 is the southern portion. That was originally supposed to be a middle school site, but there's already a middle school site located in Waterley. They were too close together, so this middle school site's actually going to move down into Withers, which I'll get into in a moment. So that's an approved PD, and that's currently under construction. The Phase 3, where the old middle school site was, they're going to lose a lot within Phase 2 and make a connection to allow for 107 additional single-family detached units. And then the Jaffers PD is the other approved PD within Village I. That's on the Lake County line. This is Fleming's Road. And that's approved for 308 attached and detached, also under construction in Phase 1 and 2. There's currently a Phase 3 that's in for permit, which is another 169 units. And then we have new planned developments which are under consideration by the county now, but not yet approved. About half of the village is in for PD approval right now. You've got the Withers PD, which is outlined here in blue on the southeast side, 814 attached and detached units, 10,000 square feet of commercial. It also has the elementary and middle school sites, as well as an adequate public facilities park. This is the general layout of the subdivision plan that the applicant has requested. Hartsog Road gets realigned, and this continues on up to Western Way. And of course, as I mentioned, the middle school site moves and becomes part of this project to allow a middle school further south from the one that's in Waterley currently. So the subdivision plans for 448 units, first phase. This can't be approved until any of the zoning gets done. Next one, this is called KRPC Hartsog. This is a small piece of property right on the edge on the southeast corner, proposed for 54 dwelling units, in for PD approval right now. Lake Mac, this is Avalon Road. Lake Mac requesting 399 attached and detached, plus about 200,000 square feet of commercial. It is the village center for Village I. Village I Parcel 1, which is located on the north side. This is Story Grove. So this property has requested 300 multifamily dwelling units. Really no connectivity offered by this, just for the fact that this is a large wetland system. So, I mean, it's pretty much insulated, so there's no opportunity to connect. Serenade at Ovation. This is the southwest corner of Village I, 269 attached and detached units. The Car PD, located here and here. 697 attached and detached, 10,000 square feet of commercial. That's going to be one of those small neighborhood centers, neighborhood serving retail on 2 acres. And the Cross PD, which is on the north, 385 attached and detached dwelling units. So all of these PDs add up to 2,918 dwelling units, 216,000 square feet of commercial, various elementary and middle school sites, and APF parks. And to date, there are only 2 that are approved. The others are waiting on transportation agreements. So with that, and in summary, well, I'll summarize without the slide. There's a ton of growth. The growth is the growth's really been moving from the north to the south, and you're starting to see some activity in Village I as Village H and Village F become built out. The next frontier is definitely Village I. Once that's done, Horizon West will be fully built out. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Brian Sanders, and he'll talk a little bit about the transportation improvements that are planned for the area.
Well, good evening. Thank you for coming and having me speak to you about the transportation program. I'm going to do shadow puppets until we get the presentation up. But as Eric has mentioned, the transportation system is responding to the tremendous growth in this area. Also like to point out that we have about 75 million visitors coming each year. And Commissioner, I think you said the city of Atlanta is here like every day. So we're also dealing with that. Am I doing this? I've got about 29 road projects I'm going to talk about. But here we go. So first, I want to talk about the production schedule of the roadway program. The roadway projects are identified on a regional basis. There's a planning agency called Metro Plan Orlando that Orange, Seminole, Osceola all joined together. We look at the projections out 20 years and see what roads are going to be needing attention. But a lot of that depends on when y'all show up, just like Commissioner had said. So through that system, we identify projects on our long-range plan and the comprehensive plan. And the production phases include the identification of the roadway needs through a study. It takes about a year and a half. Design and permitting, that's about a 2-year process. Right-of-way acquisition, that can take up to 2 years, maybe a little bit more sometimes, and a couple of years for construction. Now, the projects in the Horizon West area are administrated a little bit differently when it comes to right-of-way acquisition. Most of the capacity on the roadways out here have already been eaten up by the rapid development. So the developers out here usually have very large tracts of land. They're able to assemble other property owners, and they're able to finance these roadway projects ahead of when the county could actually fund them. We actually don't budget any funds out here for roadway projects because we know the development is coming, and they'll be a partner with us. So we're able to shorten up some of these steps. Design can be done just a little bit quicker. Right-of-way acquisition, since they control that property, we get into roadway agreements with them, and we're able to offer them impact fee credits to finance that those production phases ahead of any development getting in before those roadway processes are underway. So I just kind of wanted to lay that out, and the distribution of funding is kind of down here. So it gives you an idea. A normal roadway project funded by the county can stretch out, but Commissioner's right, we can compress that in this area, and we've been doing so on just about every project out here. Without further ado, so I'm going to talk about the projects that have been recently completed. We've completed a bunch more projects before y'all got here. You've been here about 5 years. We've done all of 535 and a bunch of other projects, but what I want to talk about is some of these others. We're going to go through the projects that are in construction, in design, and under study. Oh, too much. Here we go. Eric had mentioned the Hamlin Groves area. This was a recent project in 2017 that was completed. It served the region, future regional recreational sports complex. Matt's going to talk more about that. So it is recently completed there. Another project, good night, come back, that was recently completed in 2018 was intersection on Fauquet Road. It's facilitated this Deputy Scott Pine Community Park, and it also serves as this high school's football stadium and other sports stadium there. Includes flashing beacons, turn lanes, crosswalks, and a trail connection. So it facilitated the surge of people that would show up there. We wanted to make sure it was all safe getting to that facility. Also, Porter Road was recently completed in later 2018. It provides access to the hospital that was recently built there. Very important east-west roadway. The east-west roadways to me are about a 4-to-1 benefit because there's not a lot of them. Because of the 429 alignments, mostly north-south, there's lots of chains of lakes out there. So the east-west roads are very valuable as well. Reams Road was recently constructed, 2018, Taberfield Avenue to Delmar. It's an important collector for the new elementary school out there. We're marching kind of clockwise around that Reams Road loop, and you'll see more projects underway there. Western Way, that's an important east-west roadway. That one was actually constructed by Reedy Creek. It connects to the back door of Disney, very convenient for everybody out this way. I like to use that myself. And it's part of a much longer roadway that is planned to go all the way out to US 27. Lake County has constructed Sawgrass Bay Boulevard, and that will eventually connect through. So we're working at it from both ends, and we'll probably meet at the county line. That was completed early this year. Hamlin Grove Trail Extension, Eric mentioned a little bit about the development backdrop around that. That completes the connection from New Independence over to Tiny Road. We're going to finish that project in January of 2020. Another construction project underway is New Independence Parkway. Should begin this month and wrap up in January 2020. This also facilitates another east-west connection over to US 27. Some years ago, Lake County finished a sector plan called Wellness Way. It had its own roadway network. And actually, when you put the land uses together of Horizon West and Western the Lake County sector plan, it creates a heart. So that project will wrap up in 2020. Avalon Road, this is the Village H segment. These 3 of the 4 segments are under construction. I'm not going to go through all the limits, so I put these bullets on the map. So 4, 3, and 2 are under construction right now. Those will be ending in June of 2020. And so that leaves segment 1. So we don't have a schedule on that, but again, these are development-driven projects, and as that developer reaches his thresholds that were agreed to in those agreements, then he'll have to build those other segments. Sidell Road. Anybody live on Sidell Road? Yeah, I'm sorry. We broke that up into 8 different construction segments. It had a lot to do with when the developments were coming in, and it just kind of created a mosaic that kind of worked its way north. And the only one that's left is this 1A segment. We're tentatively going to start this month, I'm pretty sure. There's some financial issues that are being wrapped up, and that whole project will be done in 2021, so I'm sorry. Okay, there's some intersection projects that are underway. This is a little far away from you guys, Wallace and Dr. Phillips. We're going to start that a little bit later September and finish up in May 2020. Vineland Avenue, it's over by I-4 area. Start that in August 2020, wrap that up in 2021. Tiny Road and Tilden. Begin that in July 2020 and wrap that up in 21. Those intersection projects we receive federal funding for, so it really didn't cost the county any kind of funding at all. So those were good projects. Fiquette Road, this is an important one, a lot of congestion. This is a project that's in design. We're looking at 2020 to finish that up. We've got some right-of-way acquisition that will be ongoing from 2019 to 2021, and looking at construction from 22 to 24. That basically begins where the 4-laning ends on Fiquette, and it comes on down, and it completes the intersection improvements at Summer Lake Park Boulevard, Fiquette, and Ream. So I know that's been a real issue, and Christy's going to talk more about the particulars of what we're doing in the interim on that as well. Reams Road, this segment is just south of that intersection. I didn't want to include, I wanted to include that intersection in the Fiquette because it was going faster than this one. This was a study that we just finished up. Now it's in design coming up in the fall of 19. It basically goes just south of that intersection. It wraps around and ties to the Taberfield, where the other project just recently finished widening. It has an important connection to the Disney roadway network at Floridian Way. That basically gets you all the way back down over there to Western Way, off to 27 and beyond. So that's an important connection. There's a lot of traffic generation by Disney. We've been working very closely with them, and we'll continue to do that in the future. This project's looking at finishing up the design in 21, right-of-way acquisition 21 to 24, construction 24 to 26. Projects in study, we just wrapped up this study. This is Avalon Road, the very north end from the Turnpike to 50. We had an interlocal agreement with the City of Winter Garden. They're doing the segments from the Turnpike south to Tilden. We just wrapped this up last Tuesday at the board. We'll be looking for this to be budgeted for design in the future. There's some historic significance in this area, so we wanted to be sure that we memorialize that in some form or fashion, and we're going to be working with the community as we go through the production phases. Okay, Village Eye, we talked a little bit about that with Eric. This is a project that we're still working with the developers and forming the scopes of services for this study. That's the leading phase. They're still going through the road agreement committee to finalize that agreement, but when they get that done, I'm ready to go with the study. I'll be sending out notices, we'll be having public meetings, and we'll be working out the preliminary design issues for that project. That basically, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Basically starts here, just south of Flamingo Crossings. It goes all the way down to south of Western Way here. There's a Hartzog Road realignment that is planned as well. That's coming forward. And this project also includes Fleming's Road. This is that piece in that village that makes that connection over to the county line, which goes over to 27. So it's all fitting together. So looking at the spring of 20 to get that started, it's about a year and a half study. Now this is outside of the Horizon West Village. It's a study that we want to get started on this coming fiscal year. It basically starts at the Village Eye termination here at the realignment and goes all the way south to US 192. Now, we don't have a developer attached to this yet. We want to go ahead and get the study going. It ties to all of the development, like Eric said, it's pushing to the south. And we want to get ahead of that because it's a county-funded project, 4-lane widening. There we go. Tiny Road is another important road in this area. It ties to the Hamlin Groves Trail down here. We're going to kind of end it down here at Bridgewater Middle School at the southern driveway, and that's going to go all the way up to Tilden Road. We've been talking about maybe a 3-lane, maybe a 4-lane section. We're going to let the data drive the improvement on that one. We do have a kind of a sticky point up here with the 429 bridge. We were very good at making sure those bridges were wide enough for almost every other one, but this one, this one's going to be a little bit of a challenge of how we fit all of that through there. So we're looking again spring next fiscal year that's coming up to 21. And then there's a bunch of other projects in this region that I wanted to talk about. 545 from Schofield Road over through the Horizon West Town Center, 545 Town Center to Tilden Road. That's sort of that north of the where the villages end, up to the City of Winter Garden. Tilden Road to the Turnpike. That's the city has got plans for that. Hartzog Road from 545 to Flamingo Crossings. Porter Road from 545 over to the county line. There's still a lot of work to do over there. New Independence Parkway, again, over to the county line from 545. There's the other 2 lanes of Summer Lake Park Boulevard. Originally, the developer did the first 2 lanes, and now it's the county's responsibility to do the next. So we're looking at a lot of intersection improvements in that area. The traffic volumes haven't reached that failure part, but we have dedicated all the trips on that road to development. So the next thing we need to do is start to focus on that. Valencia Parkway, that's a north-south roadway from Old YMCA Road to New Independence. It's kind of in between the county line and 545. It's a north-south road. So those are the 29 projects. There's a lot going on in this area. You guys are keeping us really busy with all the growth that's coming in. And as long as this economy's cooking, it's going to be more of the same, and we're excited to keep delivering these projects to you. With that, I'm going to pass the mic to Christine Lofi. She's the manager of traffic engineering. She's going to talk about a lot of projects.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here today. As Brian said, I'm Christy Lofi, manager of the Traffic Engineering Division, and he's right, you all are keeping us very busy. Last year this time at the town hall meeting, we reported that we had recently conducted signal warrant studies at 3 intersections on Paquette Road. That's at we've got them at Overstreet Road, at New Independence Parkway, and at the Reams Summer Lake Park Boulevard intersections. Now, the design has been completed for the signal at all 3 intersections, and the construction started at all three intersections in October of this year. The section of Paquette Road that was widened includes the intersection of Overstreet Road. So the signal that is going to be constructed at that intersection is actually going to be a permanent signal. It's a permanent mast construction. However, the other 2 intersections are still within the 2-lane section. What we've done is, because the widening of this section of Paquette Road isn't expected to be complete until year 2024, we have advanced temporary signals at these 2 intersections. Initially, we thought that we would do 2 span wire signals, keep the cost down, since they were going to be temporary and would be reconstructed with the widening of Paquette Road. But what we found during the design process for the intersection with Reams and Summer Lake Park is that we actually could design a less expensive temporary signal using a single mast arm that has signal heads for all directions. So that's what we're designing right now as a temporary, and once the widening of Paquette Road takes place, those will be reconstructed as permanent mast arm signals. And it's important to note, these temporary signals have resulted in you having signals in place almost 5 years in advance of the permanent signals. That's good. That's a good sign. So, now we do have delays on these signals, and typically you have about a 6-month time frame for design and a 6-month time frame for construction. We worked really hard to shorten up that time frame for design. These 3 signals were designed in 3 to 4 months. Unfortunately, the time that it has taken for us to receive mast arms, we've lost the time that we gained during the design process. So the issue that we have is that there is a nationwide delay in delivery of galvanized steel mast arms. It's a combination of a shortage of suppliers, manufacturers, combined with the high demand that we have in this construction boom period right now. The lead time, once you've ordered the mast arms, the time it takes to actually receive them is now 7 to 9 months. Used to be about 3. The impact is that it's causing a 4 to 6 month delay in the construction schedule, but the good news is that once we receive those mast arms, we can typically get the construction completed in about a month. We are expecting the mast arms to be delivered at the Reams and Paquette Summer Lake Park intersection in 2 to 3 weeks. So we do hope to have that one constructed very soon. In the meantime, because we had this delay in receiving our mast arms, and because we heard so many concerns for the safety at this intersection, and especially with those people trying to turn onto Paquette Road from Summer Lake Park Boulevard, We did take this to the board on May 22nd for installation of an all-way stop. I know that's popular with some of you, not popular with others of you. We understand that this has caused significant delays. However, we did feel that it was a safety concern, and we went ahead and installed that. So just keep in mind that we do plan or expect to have this signal constructed in 4 to 6 weeks, so it is a temporary condition. Up at the interchange, New Independence Parkway at State Road 429, last year we told you that we were in the middle of constructing signal warrant studies at these two intersections. The signals were warranted, and we talked with the Central Florida Expressway Authority about this and found out that they had plans to widen the southbound off-ramp to allow for 2 left turn lanes at that intersection. So we thought it was perfect if we would partner together, and we entered into an agreement with the Expressway Authority, and it's going to include that widening, but also the signalization of both of those ramp terminal intersections. The deal is, it's a 50-50 split on the cost for design and construction. The project is being managed by the Expressway Authority, and just this week, they opened the bids and have selected the low bidder, so construction is moving forward. Another future signal coming, this is on Winter Garden Vineland Road. The Grand Cypress PD is going to have vacation villas, vacation homes, a golf course, a hotel. We have already met with the developer, and they have talked to us about designing and constructing a signal at this location. It's good spacing to the intersection to the south, which is just the way. It's going to be needed to handle the amount of development occurring there, and this is going to be completely funded by the developer. We also have conducted a signal warrant study at the intersection of Winter Garden Vineland and Laughlin Lane. That signal is also warranted. Now, the design of this signal started in May of this year, but due to safety concerns, we plan to close off that inside left turn lane until that signal is constructed. Laughlin Lane is still under bond with the developer. We're working with the developer so that we can go ahead and restrict access to that left turn lane. We think it's just going to improve operations in the median. And if you feel uncomfortable making a left turn here, in the meantime, you do have access to the signal at the south, Lakeside Village, and I would encourage you to use that as a safe option for turning left. This is Avalon Road at Old YMCA Road. We received complaints that people coming out from Old YMCA Road were having difficulty turning due to a combination of two things. One is the speed of people driving on Avalon Road, and the vertical curves. The hills on the road made it difficult for people to see to make that turn out. So we installed two speed tables on the road to try to slow the speeds a little bit, but we also installed a detection system such that when drivers pull up on Old YMCA Road, the flashing beacons that we installed start to flash. Those beacons, the signs attached to those beacons say cross traffic when flashing. So it alerts drivers on Avalon Road that there's somebody approaching on Old YMCA Road, and we're hoping it encourages them to slow down and just be aware of their surroundings. That was completed in January of 2019. Thanks to Commissioner Vanderlei, the developer paid for all of these improvements, and the county installed them. Uh-oh. Oh, wait. There we go. Okay, so right here at the high school, we have speed feedback signs that we are going to be installing. on Winter Garden Vineland Road. One at each end, approaching the school. The warning sign is going to say school entrance, and it's going to have a speed feedback sign attached to it. We plan to have this installed prior to school beginning in the next school year, this fall. And Tilden and Tiny Road. We have a couple of multi-way stop studies multi-way stops that we are considering at two different intersections. At Tilden and Tiny Road, you know that there are intersection improvements planned. The design is at 90% right now. And there is significant congestion, especially when school lets out for Bridgewater Middle School. We do expect there to be some relief. The Hamlin Groves Trail is going to be opening soon. We also have the Bridgewater Middle Relief School that's going to be opening. We do expect that that is going to reduce the delay at this intersection. However, we do plan to go back at the beginning, after the beginning of school starting this next school year, and we'll revisit the need for a multi-way stop at that time as an interim to the signal that is going to be included with the intersection improvement. So a signal is coming with that intersection improvement, and the multi-way stop is something that we're considering for an interim. And another multi-way stop study is currently underway. This is at Summer Lake Groves and Murcott Blossom Boulevard. We're in the data collection stage of that, and we're also looking at the crash data and analyzing that data. And the last project that we have for traffic engineering is signal retiming on Winter Garden Vineland Road. The limits of the retiming were from Grand Cypress Boulevard up to Tilden Road. All 15 signals that are within those limits were coordinated and timings were optimized. We do have different plans for different times of the day, different peak directions. And this was completed in April 2019. Those timings have been implemented. And just so that you know, the county does retime our signals on our major arterials and collector roadways every 3 years. And I just wanted to take this opportunity tonight, if you weren't aware of the county's 311 system, we do have a really great 311 system that allows you to get in contact with staff. It's similar to, say, the 411 is local directory assistance, 911 is emergency, 311 is for non-emergency public safety and other government services. Just some random stats. Our 311 department receives an average of 11 chats per day, 27 email or mobile app or web contacts per day, but 4,500 to 5,500 phone calls per week. The hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekdays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on the weekends. And here are the agency partners. As you can see, traffic engineering is one of the agency partners that works with 311. We do have a web page on the county website for 311. If you go to the Orange County website, orangecountyfl.net, and you type in 311 in the search bar, you'll get to this page. And there's lots of different ways you can get to 311. You can call. You can go to the web page and do an online request. You can do the chat. And my favorite way is using the smartphone app. And it's really good. It geolocates where you're at. If you want to take a picture, it attaches, you can send it. And I just wanted to say the wonderful thing, before I turn it over to Matt, the wonderful thing about 311 is it routes you to the correct department and division, so there's no need to try to figure out who do I need to call about this. It routes to the right person, it tracks your request, it tracks the responses that we give, and it helps me as a manager to understand how long is it taking us to resolve some of these issues? And are our numbers increasing? Do we need more staff people? So those are the kind of things that are very helpful to me using 311, and I think that you'll find it. Those of you that haven't tried it, I encourage you to try it, and if you have tried it, thank you for trying it. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Matt Sudmeyer from Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Christy. Good evening, everyone. As Christy said, I'm Matt Sudmeyer, the manager of the Parks and Recreation Division, and I'm here tonight to give you all a update on the parks and trails, or multi-use pedestrian trails that we have out here in Horizons West. Here's the outline. Like I said, we'll discuss the current park sites and as well as park sites that are under construction or under development, and then future parks. And then our trails program, and then our big Horizons West Regional Park. So our existing parks consist of, a lot of these are small 5 to 10 acre neighborhood parks. Eric Roush mentioned earlier that we have adequate public facilities out here, and a big part of those adequate public facilities are these parks, these neighborhood parks, and most all of them are adjacent to elementary schools. So you'll see a lot of that. The first one we built was in the Summerport neighborhood back in 2012, 5 acres, consists of a dog park, playground, picnic tables, and tot lot. Then we have Independence Park, built in 2015. Another 5 acre park, as I said, is adjacent to an elementary school, Independence Elementary School. This park is unique. As part of our public planning process, all these parks, before we build them, we'll come out, we'll set up community meetings like this, and we'll meet with you, we'll do online surveys, we'll see what you all would like in your parks. We realize that the developments that you live in, the property owner or the builder built some HOA parks, and we want to complement what you don't have, so we really want your input. This one is interesting because they wanted a skateboard area for the kids to skateboard, so our design consultant came up with a concept to put some benches and some little rails and things along the sidewalk to skate on, and that turned out to be a pretty neat concept. We let the community help pick out the playground, pavilions, what the look of that should be, how it should match your development, your other parks. Moving on, Deputy Scott Pine. This is one of the larger community parks that we had. And in 2018, we opened that up in partnership with Orange County Public Schools and Windermere High School for their football stadium. And as if I'm sure you all know, it consists of the multi-purpose field, the football field, track, stadium, concession building, and a multi-purpose gridiron or multi-purpose sports field. And then Lakeside Village Park, Phase 1, we opened that up last year. That park is a total of 9 acres. Included the extension of the existing Horizons West Trail system that we have out here, as well as a playground, benches, gazebo, pavilion next to the playground. $1 million was budgeted for that park. We ran out of money, we had to rebudget, so Phase 2, thanks to Commissioner Vanderlei, working with the mayor and Board of County Commissioners to get funding to do Phase 2. Phase 2 is underway. This is the concept plan of the park. Phase 2 is the portion that's along the water, consisting of a dock, a fishing pier, or just a dock on the water to overlook the lake. Some more small picnic areas, and then the big thing is adding a 5 to 12-year-old shaded play area. Right now it has a 2 to 5. And then moving on to our planned parks. So our philosophy behind this, our methodology, is we're following the elementary schools. As they get built, we're building the neighborhood parks with the elementary schools. We're right behind them. Some we have a little bit of catching up to do, some we're doing pretty good on. But the one we're working on right now, we just completed the community meetings. So we've got the public input process, we put the master plan together, and we are currently working with our design consultant to come up with the construction documents to go out to construction next year. This is what the concept was that came out of the meetings that we have and what we're building. Playgrounds, 5 to 12-year-olds to serve 5 to 12-year-olds, 2 to 5-year-olds covered. Has outdoor fitness area with outdoor fitness equipment, walking path, pavilion with picnic tables and grill. No parking. It's meant to be a walk-to park, like most of our neighborhood parks are. Our community parks are meant to be drove to, so they will have the parking lots. A lot of these parks out here, though, do have on-street parking. The next one is Summer Lake Park. Design will be budgeted next fiscal year, which is October 2019 this year, and then construction the following year. $1 million is set aside for construction. And then these are all the rest. Like I said, we're going to follow the elementary schools and when they're being built. You can see we have Lake Haywood planned to be built in 2023, Watermark Neighborhood Park in 2022, Waterlay Park in 2024, and then some of these other ones are further out. So moving on to our trails program that we have out here in Horizons West, this is another policy that was made during the planning process for Horizons West development. The developers would build the roads, provide the adequate public facilities for parks, and also build the multi-use pedestrian trails, 10 to 14-foot wide trails that you see along the roads. So those all have been built through time, ever since Horizons West started. In 2015, we put together a pretty comprehensive study on all the trails. Some of the trails are owned and maintained by the HOA. Some of the trails are owned by the county but maintained by the HOA, and then some of the trails are owned by the county and maintained by the county. So it gets a little difficult sometimes trying to see who's responsible for all that, but that's been worked out. We've identified our arterial trails that connect all the villages and the town center. Our collector trails, they connect the residential areas. These are the trails that are built inside your neighborhoods or your large sidewalks that will connect. And then, so we have 20 miles of existing trails. We're planning to have about 40 more miles. And the big thing that we're working on right now, and I don't have a slide for this, is to connect the Horizons West trail system through Hamlin Road or up Tiny Road, and eventually along the 429 to Winter Garden Vineland Road at Dillard, and eventually connect through Winter Garden to the West Orange Trail. So within, I don't know the exact date, but within not so far in the future, you'll be able to ride your bike from here to the West Orange Trail. And then the big thing I want to talk about, the big news, Commissioner Vanderlay's been working real hard with the county and our consultant that we just hired to master plan the Horizons West Regional Park. And what a master plan is we want to create a unique regional park, that is just outstanding, has a lot of cool features, a lot of multi-use recreational opportunities. We want to make sure that we include the community and we do community-based planning. We want to look at the current needs right now and try and project what our future needs will be for parks in this area. We've had a lot of interest from the private sector, whether it's some of the developers, some of the existing theme parks here, some of the big businesses have shown some interest, the hospitals, in partnering with us to help us get some funding up front to get this park built. We've had this park land since 2006. And I know we're all eager to get it going. And then, of course, we want to make sure that's sustainable green infrastructure design and something that's going to last for generations. So here's the park. For those of you that don't know where Horizons West Regional Park is located, you have the 429 to the west of the park, and New Independence Way is just to the south, and then the Hamlin Grove Trail. Actually, there's a newer aerial probably that shows the road going all the way up and around the north part of the park to Tiny Road. So the master planning process has begun. We got funding to begin the process. We've hired AECom as our consultant. They're doing the research and analysis, community meetings. We had a community meeting for you all, for the residents of Horizons West last month. We've had some focus group meetings. Today we just met with some of those partners that have shown interest in partnering with the county. We have once all those community meetings are finished and all the design discussions are finished, the consultant is going to present 2 concepts of a master plan, and then the final master plan will be presented to the Board of County Commissioners in February of next year. And then we're going to move on, depending on funding, into phase 1 design, so we can have the construction documents to go out to bid to build phase 1. So this is the timeline I just went over. We had the first community meeting in May, the beginning of May. We will be having the next community meeting November 13th of this year. We haven't determined a location. I'm pretty sure to either be here or Bridgewater Middle School. After looking at this nice facility, I'm going to push to get it to come here. This is a beautiful place for a meeting. And then, like I said, in February, we will be taking it to the board, and the community is invited to that meeting as well. So we have, as part of this master planning process, we have an online survey. And so far, in only a month, we've had 170 plus. A lot of people didn't sign in, come to the first community meeting, which was outstanding, a lot of participation. The website, over 5,000 people have gone to the website and at least looked at the survey or looked at the website. Just over 1,000 people completed the survey. And out of those 1,000 people, 958 left a comment where it says, please leave a comment for anything we've left out, which is great feedback. This is record-breaking for the Parks and Recreation Division. And if you all didn't get a chance to go online and fill out the survey, please do so. It's Horizons West Regional Park .org, horizonswestregionalpark.org, up there in white lettering. It closes June 21st, so you have a little bit of time left. But please go online, fill out the survey, and we'd love to get your input and see what you'd like to have built at the park. So that concludes my presentation, and I'll turn it over to Commissioner Vanderlei. Thank you.
It's a little tight up here on stage. Couple of real quick announcements before I introduce our next speaker. I did just notice that our county administrator, Mr. Byron Brooks, is here. I'm told by staff this is a first that we've had a county administrator come to our meeting, so that's very exciting. Welcome. And did I see Mayor Jim O'Brien from Windermere come in? Jim O'Brien is the mayor of Windermere, and he is here as well. I want to make sure we acknowledge him. Thank you for coming. Lights are very bright, so if there's any other elected officials, wave at me now or forever hold your peace. So, who else is here? Wonderful to see you. Thank you. I'm sorry it's blinding up here. So, with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker, and that is our elected school board member, Pam Gould, and she's going to talk about a lot of the schools. You all know that we have some crowding, and she's going to cover that, and there's timelines on relieving some of that crowding. And you're up next. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner, and thank you for hosting this meeting each year and being such a great partner. Orange County Public Schools and Orange County are tremendous partners. Even though we don't always agree all the time, that's good because it gets us to the right place in the end. That's right. And welcome to Windermere High and the home of the Wolverines. I hope this is not the first time that you've been to our great facility here. Before I get started on the presentation, there's one announcement that I don't want to forget to make, which is why I put this piece of paper in my hand, because I will forget. That is, school registrations are open right now for August. And we are implementing a new computer system as of June 27th. If you have a child or a neighbor or a grandchild going into kindergarten, please get them registered. If you know of people who are moving in and they're going to be here during the new school year, please tell them to get registered and do it early so that you miss the rush, because they do get crushed with all of the new arrivals to our county. So now I can put this piece of paper down. I'm going to take us through just a little bit about Orange County Public Schools as we go into the programming. We have moved from the 9th to the 8th largest school district in the nation and the 4th in the state. I think our community has a lot to do with that. We have over 211,000 students as of the last count. It was closer actually to 213,000 by the end of the school year. We have 25,000 employees, over 14,000 which are teachers. Thanks to the voters, we've been able to do an awful lot within our schools in maintaining our schools and great academic progress. We've been able to keep arts and sports programs in our middles and high schools and have wonderful programs in every one of our elementary schools as well. We have 42 magnet programs, and for those of you who don't know what a magnet program, it's a specialty program like an academy that specializes in a particular area. And that's everything from agri-science to aerospace to entertainment to entrepreneurship to STEM. It's really amazing. If you have high schoolers or people rising into high school and into your future, make sure you learn about this and our certification programs. We have a tremendous amount of opportunity in digital media, culinary, hospitality, med tech, LPN, welding, specialty automotive, where they get out and go to work for $70,000 a year. I don't think that's bad money. You name it, we have it. It's a tremendous opportunity. One of my goals is by the time I leave this office, I want to have 100% of kids qualified in something with some kind of certificate, their AA certification in a trade, something. And we're close. We're actually at 61% now and have gone up almost 20% in the last 5 years, and that's pretty tremendous. We have a 96.1% graduation rate in our traditional high schools. We're very proud of that. In addition to the CTE and all of that, we have a lot in advanced ed. In fact, we just beat out my home state, which is known for its academic prowess in K-12 in AP scores. That's the most kids that have taken it and passed with a 3 or higher. So that's impressive. And don't you know, I've already sent that back to the cousins. We have kids graduating and going to every Ivy League school, plus our magnificent Florida State schools, every single year. It's really phenomenal. They also go right into the military academies and military, and we're very appreciative for those kids willing to serve this country. This is that chart I was telling you about, from 44% to 61%. So that means kids are leaving high school having a great pathway to a career through college or directly into an industry. And we want to do that for 100% of them. We pride ourselves on our operations too. I have to say that was one of the big ahas when I became an elected official, is that we are constantly benchmarking and looking. Our staff is to make it better and do it better. The HR department just was recognized once again for the Governor's Sterling Award, and we're the only educational entity to get recognized in this way. The others are from other industries. There's a hospital, and I forgot what the other one was. Our finance department has also been acclaimed across the United States for its sound practices. And we have an AA1 and a AAA plus rating, and that's important for those of you who are not financial geeks. That means that our financial practices are very strong, and we have the ability to bond and borrow if we need to. And it just is another way that shows that the money's being handled well. Now let's talk money for a half a second. So in July of 2007, if you were to believe that the state of Florida was fully funding education to cost of living, which I have my doubts about that, but let's assume that this is correct, and we were fully funded per student at $7,309.24 in 2007. Then the Great Recession happened, and you see what happened to the orange, which is state funding. Went down dramatically. We had the federal stimulus package, which was the light blue that came in, brought us up a little bit, but not even close to that funding. And cost of living, which is that blue line that is on the upward trajectory, continues to go up. Then we got some critical needs millage. Then we had a little bit of EduJobs money in 2011. Then it was the 1 mil. Thank you very much, voters, for passing that, or we would have had to lay off and stop all those programs that I talked about earlier. And that's pretty much how our funding is gone. Last year, we got a 47-cent raise in our base student allocation, which doesn't give you much money to give your teachers, your staff raises. This year we did a little better, but you'll see that there is still a gap between where our cost of living is and where our teachers and our staff salaries are. And I want to just highlight this for a second because I need your help in educating people about this. We have a state that has a very low unemployment rate, 2.7%. So there are a lot of job opportunities out there. We have a market that has one of the highest costs of housing, and we have a lot of frontline jobs, and our major employers are moving up minimum wages to about $15 an hour over the next couple of years. We just had moved our wages up to the $10 an hour a couple of years ago as our minimum. So you see the gap here. Please call your legislators and let them know about this, that we need to invest in education. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox and get back to why we're here today. So this is what's happened in the legislature this year. The budget, we did do a little bit better in that base student allocation. They did put more money into public safety and mental health for us, and they created a voucher system scholarship program for families under $77,000. This will be unpacked a lot more over the next few months, and you'll see more information about these things coming out. Now let's get to building, which is why you're really here. So in Orange County, because of the half-penny sales tax and the voters investing in that years ago, we have built 39 schools. There's been 89 schools or 84 schools in the entire state built. We've built 39 of them, and the closest behind us built 6 in Polk County. Some of those have been totally renovated and restored schools, and some are relief schools like the many schools that we have in Horizon West area. Like this one, as a matter of fact. So since 2002, we've had 50 new schools and 118 replacement schools. That's when the first referendum was passed, and the commitment to the voters at that time, because we had some pretty desperate facilities, is that all of the facilities would get the attention that they needed to be great places to have an educational experience. 14 new schools in the next 5 years are planned. 3 are opening this coming fall right here in this neighborhood. And this is the list. So in 2019, we'll be opening the new middle school, Castleview Elementary, Water Springs Elementary School. In 2020, we'll be opening an elementary school, two elementary schools. In 2021, we'll be opening 2 high schools, and I'm trying to move up another elementary school in there. In 2023, there'll be a middle school and an elementary school scheduled, and then so on and so forth. This list gets reviewed every single year along with the county in all that growth that you heard about, so that our teams are planning this together. The commissioner and I are constantly talking about this list and roads and mast arms. Who knew we would have such conversations about mast arms? And this is, I know this is hard to see. I actually have a physical map for anybody who would like to see it. But this is just my district. So my district basically goes from Highway 50 down to Hunters Creek. And this is just Horizon West part of that district. And look at all the schools in it. So we have planned the schools here. We know that we need another high school site. We're working on that. We've just added a middle school site, one of which you heard is probably moving because it's a little too close to another site. But it is, we do have the site secured and banked, and we continue to do that across the county with the growth in the county. This is a visual, aerial visuals of the 3 schools that are opening up this fall. Horizon West Middle's the one closest to me, and the other 2 are the elementary schools. These are actually now 3 months old, so as you drive by, you'll see there's other things that have been added, and the sod is going in, and they'll have time to actually move in. And stay tuned for the sneak peeks. They will be at the end of July, and you are all welcome to come into these beautiful facilities and see what they look like. This gives you a little bit of a general idea of what our schools look like if you haven't been in them. This is the next elementary school that's projected for 2020. Here's the locations. Here's the site. That's Independence on your far right, and on the south side there is the new school site. And Bridgewater, you can see where that is. Here's an aerial view of the site plan. And this is our high school for 2021. And that's off of Sidell Road, for those of you who may not know, near the 429. And that is the site plan. Is that today's? Because I just looked at this today. Yes, that's today's site plan. And then we have another middle school planned as well, coming in shortly after that. Maybe 23, maybe earlier. So stay tuned. Please feel free to get in touch with me. Please sign up for my Facebook page. I try to put as much connectivity information on that page as possible. Betsy and I often share that connectivity so that we can make sure everybody knows what's going on. Thank you very much. Oh, and I'm sorry. I am now introducing Captain Tony Marlowe from Orange County Sheriff's Office.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Captain Tony Marlowe from the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and I am your sector captain responsible for crime reduction in this area. What my PowerPoint is going to address tonight is our 2018 crime numbers, our year-to-date crime numbers, as well as the plans for the future growth for Horizon West. So overall, in 2018, we were down 14% overall in Orange County. In Sector 3, we were down 16%. We fared a little bit better. In Horizon West, we were down 3% overall. Looking more at the numbers, under a microscope, auto thefts, and these are all the numbers that drive the numbers throughout the sector, but auto thefts were down 33%. We were stagnant in auto burglaries. Commercial burglaries were up 40%. Residential burglaries were down 25%. and violent crime in 31 was down 2%. And we're talking violent crime, we're talking homicides, robberies, sex crimes, and persons crimes. Year to date, we're down 3% in Orange County. In Horizon West. Auto theft is down 25%. Auto burglaries are up 96%. Commercial burglaries are down 92%. Residential burglaries are also down 24%. And violent crime in Zone 31 is up 15%. Now, talking about some of these numbers, the auto burglary numbers have increased. Obviously, throughout the county, we have a challenge where we have individuals that go around at night pulling on door handles, and this is the result. They're looking for unlocked doors, and that's the biggest challenge we have with trying to get information out to our residents to lock your car doors. Most of the illegal guns that get introduced to the streets of Orange County are from people leaving their car doors unlocked. We also try to educate the community on not leaving your valuables in plain sight. So if you could help spread that message to lock your car doors, don't leave your valuables in plain sight. If you can afford an alarm, get an alarm, and it always helps to have a camera or something on your house. Additionally, the biggest number that I'm really proud of is the commercial burglaries. So we had an issue in 2018 where we had some of the business in the Summerport area and the Lakeside area that were being the target of smash and grabs. We had individuals coming, breaking out windows, going into those businesses for the cash registers. So we had, I have some of the best staff in any of the sectors. I have my two special projects deputies and my crime prevention deputy that went out to these businesses and communicated with them. They also educated them on how they could strengthen their property so that they would no longer be the victim of burglaries. And I attribute a lot of that crime reduction to the good work that they did. And the violent crime in Zone 31, to put that in perspective, the increases that we saw were in robberies. We have 5 robberies, as well as sex crimes. We had 8. And it was, we have 3 more crimes at this time than we did last year. The robberies that we were experiencing an issue with were the offer-up type robberies, the social media type robberies where people go online to use social media websites to sell their belongings. They meet up with individuals, and at some point there's some type of dispute, something goes wrong, and their items are taken by force. Additionally, the sex crimes, they're not random. Most of these sex crimes here, they're known subjects. So in 2018, we had the Matrix Study Group to come to our organization to look at things like our staffing, how we deploy our resources. We looked at the calls for service, our response time, how we deploy our deputies, the geographical area in which they cover, and how much self-initiated activity time is available throughout their shift. As you're aware, with the growth and the anticipated growth in this area, we also knew that there was going to be increased demand for law enforcement services. So the following slides are the recommendations that the Matrix Group made to the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff reviewed it and he approved it, and we'll be implementing these changes October 31st, 2019. We also, this study addressed an issue that we were dealing with in multiple parts of the county. We have certain parts of certain neighborhoods and communities that are separated by different commands. For instance, I command a portion of Pine Hills that's also commanded by a colleague in Sector 1. I also have a portion of Horizon West that's split between a colleague of mine just south in Sector 6. So currently, this is what the zones look like. There's 5 zones in Sector 3. You all live in Zone 31 on the further west side, and as you can see, the 31 is a big geographical area. It includes a lot of the city of Winter Garden and portions of the city of Windermere. And as you can see up north, that zone 34, that's the portion of Pine Hills I have. And when you look down south on Avalon Road in 62, where it's split on the west side, that's the portion that's commanded by my colleague in Sector 6. This is the proposed recommendation that we're going to be implementing. The notable change you will see here is the red line, the boundaries up top. The Pine Hills is going to be all inclusive into Sector 1. The hard boundary will be the East-West Expressway, and I've also picked up all of the area west of Disney property. So and that was done so that Pine Hills would be in one community and Horizon West would be commanded by the same community. We have broken the zone structures down into 9 zones. And what that means for you currently, we used to have 2 deputies that were responsible for we deployed 2 deputies in the zone 31, and that's not including our overlapping shifts. So you'll have we start out with day shift with 2, and then we move on to the evening shift where we have an overlap, and then there's 4, and then midnights where we have another overlap where we have 4, and that's not including any other specialty units or that are working the area. But what this means for you is this. What we've done is we've reduced the geographical area in which the deputies will be patrolling. We're going to, the sheriff alluded to, we're going to be hiring more deputies, but we're going to put 2 deputies in these zones. I don't know if you can see this dot, but this is a portion of Horizon West where we're going to have 2 deputies. There's a portion of Horizon West here that will have 2 deputies, and this portion down here will have 2, and there's a small portion over here that will have 2. So we're increasing our manpower from 2 deputies in that area to 8. And by doing this, by implementing this plan, obviously it reduces the size of the zone that the deputies have to patrol. It increases the number of deputies that we're going to be deploying in the area, which helps, one, our visibility, and it also gives us the ability to have more deputies doing self-initiated activities to things that are important to you all, which is speeding, doing traffic operations. So, and it will also, you'll have 8 deputies in this area as opposed to 2 or 4 in the given time frame. So, thank you. So, and it should also reduce the response time. This is my information. It's got my cell phone number on there. I mean, many of you have it. If you call, I'll answer. That's my email address if you need to get in contact with me. I have 2 special projects deputies, Master Deputy Andrea Demps and Master Deputy Frank Del Gercio. Their contact information is there too. The only other information I have, obviously, to increase those deputies' numbers, the sheriff's office is hiring. So I know it's a shameless plug, but if you know anyone from this community that's looking for a job, whether it's sworn or civilian, we are hiring, and we're looking for some of the best and brightest people. You don't have to worry. We'll give them the training that they need to come out here to protect themselves, but also to protect you. Additionally, if you want to know more about what's going on inside the sheriff's office, you can follow us on our Facebook page. We have a Twitter page, and we have an Instagram page. Thank you.
And last but not least, our fire chief, Mr. Dave Rathbun.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm Deputy Fire Chief David Rathbun. Fire Chief James Fitzgerald, that the mayor just selected to lead the 1,363 men and women sitting in the audience. I think he's keeping score and grading me. I don't know what that's about. Short presentation, talk about a brief overview of the fire department, talk about some of the performance of the fire stations that serve the Horizon West area, and then some planned service enhancements that you're most interested in, I'm sure. 42 fire stations, We just opened the 42nd just a couple months ago, actually. On an annual basis, over 126,000 emergency incidents countywide, and took almost nearly 70,000 people to area hospitals last year. Again, 1,363 fine men and women in those 42 community fire stations serving you. And then we're pretty proud of the fact that Orange County Fire Rescue is one of 4 fire departments in the entire nation that serve a population greater than 700,000, that are in ISO 1, and that were accredited by the Center for Public Safety Excellence. What ISO is the Assurance Service Office, and some of you folks that live in the new Station 44's area will be familiar with this. ISO comes out and grades communities on fire protection and gives the community a score from 1 to 10, 1 being the very best fire protection, and 10 essentially that you have no fire protection at all. And they have various rules about water supply and everything else, but part of that is if you live greater than 5 miles from a fire station, you are essentially an ISO 10 and have no fire service. So it's important to be within those 5 road miles. It's important to note that many of the insurance companies use that ISO rating in determining your insurance premiums. That's why it's important to you. Some of the scopes of services, and I'm going to go very quickly because I know that y'all have a lot of questions for the panel, and I know that the commissioner is probably chomping at the bit to get us answering those questions. So briefly, we do the traditional fire suppression, house fires, brush fires, car fires, those types of things. EMS, obviously on the medical side, inclusive of transportation. We are your ambulance company. Technical rescue. We have high-angle teams for down on the International Drive, the big wheel. We have confined space with all the construction people. Construction companies will dig a trench. Sometimes the sand will close in on the workers, so we have specialty teams to rescue those folks. We also have part of a consortium with the City of Orlando and Seminole County, and we operate one of the state's urban search and rescue teams, which are deployable as a statewide asset to man-made and natural disasters throughout the state, and can be deployed outside of the state. And then, of course, vehicle extrication specialists, getting a vehicle accident, trapped in a vehicle, etc. We have 3 hazardous materials trucks throughout the county that are out there to handle those hazardous materials incidents. We operate a state-of-the-art 911 communications center. In addition to providing communication services to the Orange County Fire Department through a contract, we provide dispatch services to the City of Maitland, the City of Ocoee, and the City of Winter Garden. The county also is responsible for emergency management. The way that the state emergency management works is each of the 67 counties has to have an emergency manager, which Orange County does, and that falls within the fire department. And they do a lot of planning and preparation for hurricanes and other disasters, and really become a countywide asset. Municipalities communicate through that county emergency manager up to the state EOC in times of disaster. Fire marshal's office, that's your typical fire inspections into commercial occupancies. The fire marshal doesn't have any statutory or legal authority over residential, but the commercials, they'll do plans reviews and look for fire sprinkler systems, proper road accesses, etc. We also have a robust community risk reduction program in the fire marshal's office. They'll do events at some of our open houses and so forth, where they'll do helmet checks for children for bicycle safety. They'll do car seat installation instruction for new families out there that may need some service, how to get those car seats installed in the cars directly. And then, not so much a problem in a newer community like this, but we have a very robust smoke alarm installation program where people can call up and we'll come out, check the smoke detectors, and replace them. We do offer a home inspection program, which is applicable even in a newer home. Fire department will come out and go through your home, do a safety inspection, and leave some tips for you how you could, have escape routes and so forth in time of a fire. And then I mentioned the community outreach, open houses, first aid. We'll teach CPR and some other education things. Horizons West is served by primarily 4 fire stations. The first is Station 32, which is down in the public shopping center down on 192. They have an engine, which is ALS, and I'm going to pause here for a moment. When it says ALS, that essentially means there's a paramedic on there. And outside of the difference between an engine, there's a typical fire truck, and the rescue having the ability to take you to the hospital, that engine company has a cardiac monitor and all of the cardiac medications and all of the same tools to provide that life-saving skill set until that ambulance can arrive to take you to the hospital. So that's what ALS is. So there's an engine, and then there's a medic unit. So a medic unit is a 12-hour, during the peak hours of the day, it's a transport unit, an ambulance. The other station, another station, Station 34 up on 535. That's probably one of the larger stations in the area. It's got an engine and a rescue, both ALS. And there's a tanker, a water tender. We have 7 tankers throughout the county that can deliver 3,500 gallons of water to those unhydrated areas so that we can provide adequate water supply to extinguish fires. And there's also a marine rescue unit there to provide a rescue out on the water. Station 35 is off Winter Garden Violent Road. There's an engine and a rescue there. There's a woods truck, which is an off-road vehicle to go fight a woods fire off into the woods. And then there's also a captain, which captains are second in command of the battalion. A battalion is a geographical area. The county split into 7 of them, and they provide supervision for the fire stations, the 6 fire stations in that battalion. And here's a shout out to your commissioner, the newest fire station, Station 44, which she was a huge advocate, and this, no pun intended, Station 44 was not on the horizon. And she worked and worked and worked to advance that fire station by several years. So good shout out to her. That station just opened on April 2nd. We had a wonderful open house ceremony about a month later where they cut the ribbon and we're off and running. There's an ALS engine, ALS rescue there. And that's a temporary facility. I'd like to give a shout out to Orlando Health. If anybody's affiliated with Orlando Health, shout out to y'all. It was a good partnership. They leased us a piece of property where we could put a manufactured building and open a fire station very quickly. This is the performance for the 3 fire stations that were in existence last year that provided service to the area. So real briefly, I'm just going to talk about how we break up performance of a fire station. So you have the first column there talks about process, and what that is that's the performance of the dispatcher, and we call it call process. So from the time you call 911 till the time that the dispatcher alerts the crews in the fire station. So during that time, and we give them 60 seconds, they need to verify your location, determine is it a fire emergency or a medical emergency, and select the closest appropriate resource to dispatch to your emergency. We give them 60 seconds. You can see for all 3 fire stations on the average they're in the 35-second, 37-second range. The next segment is what we call firefighter turnout. So you can envision in the fire station, the alarm's gone off, and the crews drop whatever they're doing, and they proceed to the fire truck to begin their response. We give them 60 seconds to do that if it's a medical emergency, because they don't have to don any protective clothing. We give them 80 seconds to do that if they have to put their bunker pants on because they're going to go to a fire. We do very well in that area. You can see 35 seconds, 31 seconds, 33 seconds on average for the firefighters to do that turnout. The next part, we don't have direct control over, but that's the travel time. So they've begun their response until they arrive on the scene of your emergency. The only way that we can fix that are through transportation improvements and additional fire stations. But in this area, the performance is pretty darn good. You can see on average the travel time 7 minutes 7.5 minutes, 5 minutes, etc. Station 44 will have a positive impact on this next year. When we come do this next year, those response times will be lower because it's about a network of fire stations. Station 44's call load will subtract from those longer calls in those other fire stations. The part that you really care about is the TRT, or the total response time. You don't really care about how long it takes the dispatcher to process the call and the firefighter to get there. You're concerned about time you call 911 till we get there. And there's the averages, 9, 8, and 7 minutes. This is the call volume for last year for those 3 fire stations. You can see the vast majority of the calls are EMS in nature. And in 2017, a total of 3,600 alarms and 3,900 alarms last year. So as growth continues, people have caused more incidents. This is a typical month in the Horizons West area. Those 3 fire stations responded to 462 emergency incidents in March of 2019. 37 of those were auto accidents, 14 structure fires, 109 general fire service alarms, 9 hazmat calls, 9 wildland fires, 284 emergency medical calls, taking 171 patients to area hospitals. So planned and service enhancements for the area. So first, between 2020 and 2025, we're planned to build the permanent Fire Station 44, and that's scheduled to be located at Summer Lake Park on Reams Road, just south of that intersection that they talked about, the intersection improvements. In the same time frame, the 2020 to 2025 time frame, we plan to open Fire Station 48, which will be located on Avalon, just north of Porter Road, in very close proximity to where the temporary Station 44 is. And then 2025 and beyond, based on the timing of all the development, we have another fire station planned out here, Station 49, that's on Avalon and Sidell. And then we also have plans in the same time frame to relocate Station 32 from the public shopping center down on 192 to a permanent location to close proximity to the Hartsog Road realignment. And then in closing, I would just like to ask by a show of hands, how many people out there are trained in CPR? Excellent. How many people are familiar with our app, PulsePoint? Great. For those of you that raised your hand about CPR and didn't raise your hand about PulsePoint, this is a relatively new program that we launched. PulsePoint is an app that you can go to the App Store or what's Google? I'm not a Google person. But anyhow, you can go to any of the app stores and download the app. It does several things for you, and it does several things for your neighbors. The first thing that you can do is strictly voluntary. You can sign up saying that you know CPR, and you can volunteer to be alerted when CPR is necessary within a quarter mile of your current location. The app will alert you and let you know that CPR is needed. It will show the location where it's needed. In addition, it will also show you where the closest automatic external defibrillator is, so you can grab somebody to go get that while somebody else is assisting you in doing the CPR. It's got some other neat things in there. You can also listen to the radio, and you can listen to us respond, and you can also see all of the calls that we're currently on. And I think that's it, and I'll turn it back over to the Commissioner for questions.
Appreciate it. Okay, we are really right at 8 o'clock right now, and I want, while you're coming forward for questions, I want to ask if your question is something that you already know that we're working on, if you could, just in interest of time, if you know we're working on it already, please don't ask that question here because we are running really long on time. As you can see, there's a whole lot of stuff going on here. But if you do have a question that we don't already know about, which is how I found out that we needed a new fire station very quickly, please do come forward at this point in time. While I thank the OCPS staff way in the back for staying here tonight and helping us with this, thank you so much for helping. Again, if you have a question on something we're not already working on, please come forward at this time, and we'll start with you. Yes, sir? Right in front.
Thanks. I got a couple statements and a couple questions. Commissioner Vanderlei, I'll just start with you since you're standing. I just want to thank you for the hard work because it is daunting. These meetings tend to be kind of negative a little bit sometimes when it gets to this section.
Thank you.
But my question is, at the last meeting, I specifically asked about the tourist tax being able to be used
Tourist development tax.
elsewhere. Is there any progress on that? I know that I believe that's a legislative.
So the tourist development tax, for those that don't know, if you stay in a hotel, there's a specific tax. It's called a bed tax, and we collect that. That is a self-taxing initiative by the tourism industry, and that money is used then to promote more tourism to get more people staying in hotels. So if you don't live in a hotel, you don't pay that tax, just so that you know. But that, there's a lot of talk over time about how that gets used, and a lot of folks have asked to use that for different things like public safety, like schools, like a variety of different things. Right now, the language in the law says that those tax dollars are prohibited from those uses. They have to be used in their intended purpose for the legislation that passed and allowed them to become that self-taxing area to promote tourism. To the best of my knowledge, obviously legislation is not in session at this point, so there's nothing moving in Tallahassee along those lines. I do know that our Charter Review Commission is now formed and sitting and reviewing how they might alter our charter at the Orange County level, and I know they're talking about TDT in some form or fashion, but exactly what they're talking about we won't know until they kind of go through that process. But I would encourage you to engage with folks that are serving on that Charter Review Commission. We will have a Charter Review Commission remote meeting in the district that we'll be advertising that you can come to and share your thoughts on that as well. But in terms of, is there any motion on that right now? Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I don't know who this question is for, but are we ever going to have a library out here?
That actually is for me. So the library they have money in their budget to purchase land, and I'm actively helping them find and talk to different developers to potentially purchase that land. They obviously would like to be in the town center area near Hamlin. They're also one of the folks that we're talking to in terms of the regional park, and perhaps maybe we find space for them on there. It's in motion right now. They have money budgeted and they're ready to do that. They've shared with me that they'd prefer not to spend that money on a temporary location because then it takes the permanent location and moves it further down the road than it is right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And then I have a question for Christine. How much does a mast arm cost, and will the temporary mast arm...
Do you have one? Because if you have one, we need to
Well,
talk
how much does it cost, and will they... You said that their temporary mast arms ended up being cheaper than the string. Will that temporary mast arm become a permanent mast arm? Just want to make sure they're not thrown away.
Well, it's not always easy to reuse them because they are designed for the specific length of the mast arm, the number of signal heads needed for that specific location. We do have a mast arm yard that we take those ones that end up being replaced, and if we do have opportunities, we will reuse them.
Okay.
A mast arm signal costs in the range of about $250,000 to $300,000 right now. But this one, which is a single mast arm, is much, much less than that.
Okay, thank you. Matt Sudemeyer, is that how you say it?
Yes.
I would ask you to reconsider the design of the shade at the playground, specifically the one at Lakeside Village. It doesn't do a very good job actually shading. I'd invite you to take a look at midday and see that, and even as the sun moves through the sky throughout the day, how it really doesn't do much as we move forward with all of these other parks. Just ask you that as a consideration.
If I could interrupt you just a second. There's a line of folks behind you. If
Oh,
half
I'm
of
so
you
sorry.
could-
Goodbye.
No. I'm not trying to rush you. I'm just saying if half of you could move there so that as soon as he's done,
Yeah, I was
we can
looking at my
just-
peripherals. I apologize.
That would be
Sorry.
helpful because I definitely want to make sure that we're respectful of the OCPS's staff time to be here.
Okay. And then just lastly, Sheriff Mina, I find it to be, quite honestly, a little ridiculous that a citizen can record and you can arrest based on that recording. I think that that's a dangerous precedent. That's just, I hope I heard you incorrectly.
I don't understand the question. I couldn't hear
Okay,
it.
That was about the drag racing and the
You mentioned something
changes.
about citizens can record now, and you can arrest on a recording?
So before the law was passed, our deputies had to see the reckless driving, see
Is it
the
only reckless driving? Or like we all gonna
reckless
be walking
driving,
around,
speeding,
like,
whatever. So these guys on these ATVs who are basically going across the roadways, down engulfments. If you videotape that, if there is several witnesses who witnessed that, we end up stopping the person, even though our deputies didn't see it. We can actually charge that person.
But it's specific to that. We're all not going to be policing each other.
It's specific to that. There's only 7 or 8 misdemeanor exception clauses. That was added as one.
Okay. And then I grew up in Broward County. I've moved here in 2002. One thing that I've noticed here that's very different, and it's even before your tenure, is that the school zones, and I don't want to be one of those, back in New York type of people, right? But the school zones in Broward County, if you went 16 miles an hour, you're getting pulled over. I know our school zones here are 20 miles per hour, but I feel as though nobody respects them. And my neighbors and I worked with Commissioner Vanderlei to get bigger signage for the school zones. But I just feel in the sake of our schools and our children, I personally would like to see better enforcement of actual school zones. And that behavior has been ingrained in me since growing up down there, so I literally do not go a mile over the speed limit in a school zone, and I feel like I'm getting run off the road inside of the middle of the school zone. So I would just encourage you to take a look at that. And then lastly, I think my biggest quality of life issue is not the texting and driving, which is a huge one, but the thing that drives me nuts is slow drivers in the left lane on 535 particularly.
Sign me up for that
Well,
one too.
definitely that slow driving in the left lane is not a focus of ours. However, text and distracted driving, and specifically your concern of school zone, is a major focus of ours. I think as you'll see this next school year ramp up, especially with the enhanced penalties for distracted driving in the school and work zones, you're going to see a lot of deputies out there, a lot of enforcement. So we're on it, and definitely a major focus. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
I'll add on to that before we go to the next question here that please do me a favor. If you see speed enforcement or enforcement for speed in school zones, do not post that on social media so that your neighbors all know, let me just slow down quick and avoid that ticket, because avoiding a ticket is not quite as memorable as getting one. And we're looking for a change in behavior. So please don't share that on social media so that it negates them actually being out there. And yes, sir, you're next.
So 2 questions, I guess this is for David. Station 44, once again, living in the Summer Lake area, we love it. It's a great improvement to response times. The problem is the insurance letters that you guys send out state it's a temporary station.
It is
most
temporary.
insurance companies, for some reason, same equipment, same number of staff, same everything, because it's a temporary building, they say it doesn't count.
Sir, if I will give you my business card, and if you give me a call, I can help you through that issue. Hindsight, it should not have been called a temporary fire station. It is a fully functioning fire station, so I can work with you offline to rectify that.
Okay, fantastic. Second quick question for you. You mentioned Pulse Point, you mentioned AEDs. Does the county have any sort of program to help HOAs or anything with the purchase of AEDs for pool areas and other common areas?
The fire department does not. I'm not sure if there's any other programs in the county that could assist.
I'm not aware
with
of any,
purchasing.
but if you do me a favor and email our office, we can check and see if there's anything along those lines.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm not aware of anything, but we can look, for
Okay.
sure. I think it'd be a great idea. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have a timeline question. I noticed both from Mr. Rush's presentation and Mr. Sanders that the 215-acre park was still being referred to as a sports complex, which I know is now being called the Horizons West Regional Park. That's been forced through rather quickly, where the tiny Antilden Road construction and solution of that intersection won't be completed until almost 2 years from the beginning of construction on that new park, really, because it's been forced through out of nowhere. So I'm wondering why our roads are not as important as this park, which wasn't touched for a decade.
So maybe that's a question for me. So the park has been planned for 13 years or something along those lines. Circumstances have changed in terms of recreation and in terms of ball fields available in the area. When it was originally planned to be a sportsplex, there was a real deficit of ball fields. There are now a lot of ball fields just across the county line in Lake County that are serving a lot of that purpose. So we didn't want to build a park that wasn't going to be used. In terms of timeline, the timeline you're looking at on the park is the beginning of like phase 1. We also recognize that we have to move forward with the roads on there, but as I mentioned at the earlier onset, that vertical construction component that you see, like housing and buildings and all that type of thing, it just doesn't take as long as the roads do. When Mr. Sanders talked, he talked about they have to do a conceptual road analysis, they have to do public meetings telling people this is coming, and that takes about 1.5 years, 2 years, then there's 2 years of design typically, and then if we have to acquire right-of-way, obviously the property owners dictate the timeline to us in a great detail as well. So the overall timeline on a road is 6-ish years. And I could go to work for you guys when I'm done with this gig, right? So all that to say that it's not a matter of that they're being more important or not. They just have different timelines at which they function. They're both getting attention. And as you heard earlier, there's a number of things that we've moved up years, in some cases 5 years ahead of schedule to address what we know to be an acute problem with some of the transportation infrastructure in this area. And Tiny Road, I think maybe the second conversation I had when I got in office was about the intersection at Tilden and Tiny. And why aren't we moving on that? That's a real problem. So it's not a matter of whether we're paying more attention to a park or that moved forward very quickly and the road did not. The park has been in a planning phase and we've done a number of different iterations of that plan over the past 13 years. So if you take that 13 years that we've been planning that park and you look at how long we've been working on trying to advance that road construction, actually the road construction is happening more quickly, or the road planning is happening more quickly than the park did. It's just not always visible. So when you're looking at where we are with the timeline, it may be a little deceiving along those lines.
Commissioner Family, you created your own problem with your answer. This park has been being looked at for all these years, and the roads take so much longer. Well, the new plans that you have mentioned in interviews with, I believe, the Orlando Sentinel about this park would create traffic issues that you would force residents to then endure another 6 years to fix?
No, so the Orlando Sentinel interview and a number of interviews I've done have been aspirational in terms of getting people to think big about that park. Exactly what's going to go in the park is going to be determined by all these series of meetings that we're having right now with the public and with stakeholders and interest groups. So that's not defined as of yet. That's in process right now. In terms of why we didn't build the road and improve the road 5 years ago or 6 years ago or 13 years ago when that park was originally designated, none of those houses that were there that are now driving on those roads existed at that point in time. So we do know that the road construction and the road improvements have to happen in order to make the park work as well. But exactly how that's going to orient, where the entrance is going to be for that park, I mean, it's all up in the air right now and part of the planning process. I'd encourage you to stay engaged with that, but we do know that that tiny road has to be improved and we do know that it has to be moved up as quickly as we possibly can. But there is a timeline, and I don't mean to be funny about this, but nobody calls 5 years ahead and says, we're going to be coming to Horizon West and moving in here in 5 years, please be ready for us. We just don't get that kind of notice. So we're always behind the curve in making sure that we're addressing those infrastructure needs because we don't know you're coming until you arrive and you buy your house. And then we go, okay, we need to hurry up and address this problem. But there's no way to get ahead of that because people don't let us know ahead of the time that they're going to move to this area. So thank you, I appreciate it. And yes, ma'am. I know we're really short on time, so please.
Okay. I wanted to ask about the development on the corner of Avalon and New Independence Parkway, where they took 1 million truckloads of sand and filled in a sinkhole. I'd really like to know what's going to go on top of that sinkhole that they've now filled in.
You know what they're doing?
And they block traffic every single day to take truckloads from the west side of Avalon to the east side of Avalon.
Yeah, I'm familiar with what they're doing there, and part of the reason for moving that fill had to do with drainage to make sure whatever goes in there doesn't flood. I don't remember right off the top of my head what's going in there, do you?
So there are a couple projects that are active on the west side of 429 south of New Independence Parkway. Those are known as Hamlin West and Hamlin Southwest. The Hamlin West project is a retail project, generally consistent with what you would see in the Public Center. So that's going to be done, I believe, by the Boyd Group, which has done the Publix. And then there's a residential section on the south as you get closer to the intersection of Avalon and 429.
I think I'm already to the south. I'm talking about the south side of New Independence.
Right. So, as you said, this between like 429 and 545 is the commercial piece.
Okay.
And then on the other side is the residential piece.
Oh,
Does
I
that
see.
help make
Yeah,
sense?
that helps.
Okay. And why they're moving that much soil, I don't have anyone here to talk about the drainage, but generally speaking, when they move that much dirt, it's typically to make sure that it's a stormwater issue, that it drains properly, and that nobody floods
So
and all of that type of
they
thing.
shaved off all the hills on the west side of 545.
And I don't have the specific knowledge on that right now. We can get that to you
Okay.
if you just
I'll
email
send
the
a note
office.
to your staff.
Yeah, just email us, and we'll be
Okay.
happy to find that out for you.
Are there any plans to make Horizon West a city in the future?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So it'll just remain
Unincorporated.
unincorporated?
As far
Orange
as I
County?
know, I mean, obviously, things
Well, I
change.
guess that could
and-
change, but.
Yeah.
My last question is about the future of Conserve 2 property. I know that.
Untouched. There's not any plans to do anything different with the Conserve 2 land at all.
So since, the federal government has pulled out, the county has it, I guess my concern is that someday somebody's going to want to develop that property.
It's owned by Orange County, and Orange County doesn't develop property, and they don't sell to developers to develop property. The only reason that the EPA is not involved any longer is because they looked at what we were doing and they said, you've got a track record of doing what we asked you to do. We don't need the oversight on it anymore. So that it really has no change at all in terms of how that's going to be handled. We still own it jointly with the city of Orlando, and it's still going to be handled in exactly the same way it has been in the past.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
I live off of Overstreet, and I saw a sign that you're building an elementary school next to the farm. And
Elementary school on Overstreet?
Next to the farm, it said future home of some elementary school. I want to confirm, is that true, first of all?
There's not we have a site there, so we've marked our sites. We have a couple of sites that we may or may not use at some point, but right now we are focusing more on west and south with the new schools, and I can share that list with you again, the list that I showed here. But we do own a site there, and we also own one in Summerport that we haven't executed.
And OCPS has a practice of putting a sign up to alert you to that, because too often we'd have people saying, I bought this and I had no idea there was going to be a school there.
Yes,
So they
that
mark
was my
those sites now.
issue. Yeah, that was my issue. I've lived here 12 years, and I hate the runaway development. And I can't get out of my subdivision in the morning because of Sunset Elementary. And then I go the back road on Calderdale. Now there's a preschool and a junior high. So if you do build a school, I want to know what the plan is to alleviate the traffic, because I will not be able to get off my street and get to work in the morning.
If a school does move through, we'll have to address it at that point in time, but it's a big if at this point, because they haven't put anything in front of us saying they're definitively going to do that. They're just owning the property right now. So
how will I know when they're being built so I can contact
You would get noticed. We notice if you're that close to the school, when we're going to be doing any kind of construction in a neighborhood, we send out notices within, I want to say it's, Marilyn, is it 2 miles, the notice that goes out? Yes. So 2 miles. Marilyn Gutierrez is my assistant who's here tonight.
So we get that in the mail?
You would get it in the mail, but there are no plans in the next 5 years right now to execute on that site.
Happy to hear that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
3 things real quick. First, I want to say thank you about something. In 2017, in the fall, we had Hurricane Irma. And as an avid cyclist who uses the West Orange Trail, the trail got damaged in Winter Garden. And it stayed damaged for about a year. And in November of 2018, a year after this happened, I reached out to Matt Sudemeyer and I said, fix the trail. And he did. It's fixed now. It's a great repair. I think it'll be nice, and I appreciate that. So I just wanted to say thank you, number one.
Thank you.
Number two, I've got something, I don't want to get in the weeds on this, But I would like to have a little sidebar with Brian and Christine when the public meeting's over, if we could. I've got a transportation planning issue as well as a traffic engineering issue. And then the last thing is, I grew up in Winter Garden. I've lived here all my life except for 12 years when I was in the service. And I have to correct all of you tonight. There is no such place or no such road as Paquette Road. It's Paquette Road, okay? So, there's Paquette Road doesn't exist. It's Paquette. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to say thank you for all that you do for us. I've been to some of the BCC meetings and the school board meetings and the transparency, and thank you for your partnership with us. And I've also been trying to do a neighborhood watch with the Sheriff's Department, so thank you for that. But what I am having trouble with is some traffic engineering issues in Watermark. I've been trying to get a four-way stop that I was told was in the design process, study and then design process for Wood Crane and Seton Creek, and that was not listed today. Also, there are speeding issues from Seidel to Summer Lake Parks Boulevard. And there is one speed limit sign when you enter Watermark for 25 miles an hour, and one when you enter Summer Lake. But anyone coming in from any of the side roads to Summer Lake Park, if they don't know that it should be 25, they are just speeding back and forth. So we need more speed limit signs, more slow down, the lighted signs, more enforcement. Please no speed bumps. They reduce your emergency response time by like 14%, and it is bad for a lot of other reasons I won't get in the weeds for, but so if we can get some help on the engineering for those two major areas, and also parking. Parking is an issue on Summer Lake Park Boulevard. There's a lot of accidents that have almost happened where cars are parked on both sides and one side's no parking. And then at Wood Crane and Seton Creek, we have something called Turo. There's a resident operating a business out of their home, and I know some residents have gone to the HOA, but they have 8 to 13 vehicles the size of Escalades all along Seton Creek. And when you try to make a left turn on Wood Crane, you can't see past them. So that's part of it there.
Can you do me a big favor? They're writing down the traffic ones, but on the one where they're running a business out of their house, would you email that to us so we can send that into code enforcement? Or better yet, just dial 311 and report it?
I thank you for your app. I use your app all the time.
All right.
I've already reported it this
Okay,
morning.
good. Super, super. So give them a minute to react to that, and hopefully, if you don't see that followed up on, let us know. But that, and by the way, I know Christy did a great job of talking about 311, but I mean, even if you see a street light out or a traffic signal that's not functioning or whatever, please use 311. There's me and Amy and Diana in our office, and as much as I love to talk to every one of you, we become the bottleneck when we get too much of this in our office. So help us by using the 311 app so we can track it there for you as well. Thank you.
Just for a plug of that, the 311 app is super user-friendly. I've put in mosquito control requests. I've put in all my traffic engineering, my Orange County Sheriff's requests, everything. Just our trash was skipped yesterday. I put that in. They called me within an hour of me putting it in. So the 311 app routes very quickly.
Quicker than we can with only three in our office.
But real quick, in connection with the Turo, I was shocked to learn that the Airbnb law was lifted last year for Orange County.
No, that's not
in
true.
July.
So right now we're evaluating. The mayor's office is evaluating some options on the Airbnb. There has been no action on the Airbnb law in Orange County for a while. I mean, I don't remember when the last time I don't think Airbnb even existed when we looked at it last. So there's not been a lifting of it. We need to, as a county, we need to look at how we're going to govern that. But there's no change in that right now.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Well, good. And then lastly,
Okay.
real quick, someone asked about library. What's the chances of getting Winter Garden split in half for USPS? They cannot keep up on the mail. There's a lot of lost mail problems.
I know. I have the same issue. The only thing I can tell you about the Postal Service is that's a federal program. I have zero to say about that. You need to contact your Representative Val Deming's office and make sure she knows that we need a post office out here badly. Because I don't have any control over that. I can say it, but if she's getting inundated by all y'all, you can tell how southern that was. Sorry. If you can make sure that you're singing that same tune with me, that we need a post office, that would be very helpful.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on those traffic complaints from Cedar Road, so we're aware of those complaints. We've written 473 tickets just on that road this year, so we'll keep up the enforcement, but thank you for reminding us.
Yes, sir.
Hi, can anybody here help me change the rules for the water reclamation program, Water Conserve 2, that sends the reclaimed water out to the agricultural districts so that we can get some of it sent back to the HOAs?
We didn't bring anybody from utilities today, so if you could...
I know it's a news topic.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't think to bring somebody from utilities. If you could email that to my office, I can't answer that right off the top of my head, but if you send that into our office, I can send that to our utilities folks then.
Absolutely, just my one question.
That'd be great. And final question, and then we get to let everybody go home. Yes, sir.
All right. I know you mentioned not to bring up anything that you've already been aware of, because I have reached out to your office and so have some of my neighbors, but I didn't see anything about this tonight. We live in the Waterley community, and that intersection, getting out of Waterley right there on Avalon Road. And
Christy, do you want to? We've got some improvements coming to that, so hold on just a second. And Christy, if you want to cover that.
Yes. Is this on? Okay. We do have plans to install a speed feedback sign in the northbound direction, and it's going to be attached to a warning sign, and I think that the warning sign is going to say Hill Blocks View, because there is a vertical curve.
Yes.
We also are working with the developer on plans for a signal at that intersection. So that's still in the planning stages. We're working with them right now, so we don't have a time frame yet.
But the interim will be that light and or that flashing speed feedback, and what's our kind of timeline on that?
That typically takes, I would say, 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months from this point, or is that already been
No,
closed?
from this point.
From the point that they were ordered. So I believe I believe Hector Bertrand met with the community a week or two ago, and at that point, a work order was created for that.
So it'll be going up in short order on that, and that'll be an interim. So thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you, OCPS staff, for staying late. I really appreciate it. I know you have a question, sir, but I promised them that they could go at 8, and we're at 8:30. I'm happy to take any emails for things that we didn't get to tonight. Thank you all for coming out.